We know the government has been working to lower inflation with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Federal Reserve raising interest rates now for almost a year. And now this new debt ceiling bill might help bring costs down, but prices remain high just about everywhere you look. I mean, food prices rose 7.7% over the last year, and then oil companies made $200 billion in profits. Airfare jumped 2.7% last month. Now the grocery store prices for several food staples, margarine, eggs, flour, you name it, they've also been skyrocketing. But it isn't just food that's been high. Remember those record high gas prices at the pump last summer? Yeah, last year, Shell, Chevron, Total Energies, they all profited more than $30 billion. Take a look at that. ExxonMobil, all the way to the right of your screen, they raked in record profits, pocketing more than $59 billion. So with all the efforts being made to bring inflation down, why are prices still so high? Douglas Holtz Eakin joins me now live. He's the president of the American Action Forum, a policy research institute. Douglas, thank you so much for joining me. What is behind the rise in consumer prices? I mean, should we still be blaming supply chain issues? Is there an element of price gouging?
I think the bigger element is just a very strong economy. We saw at the roots of this inflation both a Federal Reserve that stepped on the monetary gas all through 2021 and didn't start turning the corner until 2022. We saw a big overstimulus of the U.S. economy with the American Rescue Plan. And since then, we have yet to see the spending really slow down. We got new numbers last week on Friday that showed that personal consumption expenditures, household spending, the American consumer, rising at an annualized rate of 6%. That's very strong real spending growth. We need something closer to 2 or 3% to get inflation under control. And so in an economy that continues to have a hot labor market where wages go up, and we had another strong labor market report today, but spending continues to grow, it's hard to get prices to come down. So, the Fed has been leaning hard with relatively little success. Its preferred measure of inflation a year ago was 4.9%. After a year of interest rate hikes and leaning against the inflation, it's down to 4.5%. It's not a lot of progress.
So you're saying the economy has been strong. We're seeing unemployment at a record low. It's what, 3.4%. Why have economists been saying that there's a recession coming? Why is corporate America saying there is a recession coming?
Most recessions in the U.S. start with a decline in business spending. We're focused a lot on the consumer because that was what happened in the pandemic. But every recession prior to that, after World War II, starts with a downturn in business spending, in particular, purchases of big durable goods, building factories, expanding. And we saw real weakness in that sector over last year. So I think that's been the concern of most people looking at the outlook for the economy. You have businesses that are pulling back already. The Federal Reserve is making it much more expensive to borrow, to finance big projects as rates go up. And that combination usually leads them to cut back. We start to get a little downturn. Then households get cautious and it snowballs somewhat. That's been my expectation in the second half of this year. It's been, I think, the expectation of most economists. But it's not here yet, that's for sure. The data continue to be very strong, and we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, you're right. All the economic data that continues to come out has looked really good. Yeah. And to your point, companies have been pulling back. We have been seeing layoffs, but still we're seeing record profits being reported. Are companies padding their bottom lines? Take a look at some of these numbers, Douglas. These are from last year, Q1, starting with the food companies. Look at that. Cal-Maine Foods, whose products include Egglands, Land O'Lakes, Farmhouse, they saw a 718% increase in their profits. Kraft Heinz saw an increase in profits of 448%. Gas companies, they're still seeing record profits. We know Exxon pulled a record number in Q1, $11.43 billion. Total Energies, Chevron, Shell, all also saw major profits in the first quarter. So in this instance, what do you make of the Fed's handling of monetary policy? I mean, are they going about this all wrong? Do you think that Powell has this under control? Because it seems to me the only tool that he has to fight inflation is to raise interest rates. But why are prices still so high for consumers?
Well, certainly the only tool they have is a very blunt tool, which is to raise rates, and that has different impacts across the economy. They've been very successful in some regards. We used to have a lot of goods price inflation, getting things from across supply chains across the ocean, things like that. Goods price inflation is relatively under control. It's the services, and in particular, shelter inflation, that has really been very tough to knock down. And so the Fed continues to raise rates because that's the tool that it has. And not every part of the economy is prospering, like the sort of volatile food and energy sectors. The housing sector is in a recession, no way around that. We've seen massive layoffs in the tech sector. It overbuilt during the pandemic. It's not doing all that well. So when you look at the economy as a whole, it's not all just big profits. That's in certain sectors. And it's not all a case of Fed failure. It's been successful in some regards. It's just not across the board success yet. And Chairman Powell warned everyone at the outset that it would take years, not months or quarters, but years to get inflation back to the 2% target. They're now aiming for roughly 2025 as the year we see 2% again. That's a long time. And in between, households do continue to have real trouble with these costs. Food, energy, and shelter, those are the 50% of the typical family budget, are still rising at over 6% a year. So, you fill up your car, go to the grocery store, go home, you're reminded of the problems that we are faced with this inflation. The Fed has vowed to get it under control, but it's a slow process and a painful one in many regards.
I want to go and just circle back to food and energy prices not really coming down for consumers because we just went over profits. We just looked at what happened last year and we looked at Q1. Now, some of what's happening on Capitol Hill right now, we know that Senator Elizabeth Warren has been unveiling legislation that would force companies essentially to disclose their rationale for charging more for their products. What do you think about legislation around this? More transparency for the consumer, if you will. Is there any way to get this under control so price gouging doesn't happen?
The best solution to high prices is greater supply. And one of my concerns about legislation and regulation is that those are things that every business has to comply with. Often they require armies of lawyers to comply with them, and accountants and auditors, and that makes it harder to start a business. And we want more businesses to enter and take on these high-priced companies so that we get greater competition, we get prices down to consumers. And so there is no a substitute for more competition and better supply. That's what gets rid of high prices. Any other solution will ultimately just take a long time and fail in the end.
But is there really enough competition out there? Because I'm thinking that might be a problem here.
There is a lot of competition. There's this folklore that floats around, certainly Washington, D.C., that somehow in every part of the economy, in every sector, and every market, we've seen massive rises in concentration. That's really not in the data. You really cannot find that story. That's something that gets hoisted as essentially a reason to undertake action, but it's not really true. So if you thought the world was too concentrated in 2000, then you probably think it's too concentrated now, but it's not a lot more concentrated now than then. So we haven't seen a big change.
All right, Douglas Holtz Eakin with the American Action Forum. Douglas, thank you so much for your time today. Always appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.